But my first kind of gig on TV was I was a contributing editor for Bloomberg. I used to come on and talk about technology and the economy. And it seemed for like 6 months, and this was back in the early part of the millennium, everyone was talking about Greek sovereign debt and how they were in danger of default. And if Greek debt defaulted, it was going to create this contagion and the whole world was going to, go into an enormous depression. And it was such ridiculous bullshit. The entire Greek economy represented 2% of GDP of Europe. And yet, no one is talking about the fact that the second largest economy has a real estate crisis unfolding. JetBlue, I'm fascinated by this. I think JetBlue is a great brand. I think they're the best product in the domestic market. As you know, I fly a lot. And the stock has been a real underperformer. The merger got called off, and then boom, he comes in, 22%. I mean, this is a classic activist play. I'd be curious to know, and I don't know if you've read his deck, what does he think they need to be doing that they're not doing?
Yeah, he hasn't said anything about this, and so that we can only speculate. All he's done is submitted the filing, and he said it's an attractive investment, but he hasn't said anything about strategy or what he plans to do. But it feels like the merger with Spirit, which was cancelled and which we discussed on a previous episode, it feels like that must have played some part in the investment thesis here. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how it would have played a part. Like specifically, in what way would JetBlue failing to acquire Spirit make it an attractive investment?
Well, because I think the stock got cut. So at some point, everything's attractive, and at some point, everything's unattractive. And I think this stock has been a veritable underperformer. And so I think he's coming in and saying, okay, he may just be coming in and saying, we can all agree that the stock is undervalued, and I'm going to come in on the board and I'm going to decide whether the CEO needs to be replaced. We need to cut costs. We need to be acquired, whatever it might be. You come in with a series. I mean, having been an activist, what I generally found is you have a thesis. So basically, I had not only been kicked out of the band I started, but every shareholder thought, okay, this guy's crazy. We're sticking with Moritz and this crew. That was, I think arguably that was probably the lowest moment I've ever had professionally. And then about 2 months later in an earnings call, the CEO, who was a total incompetent, she announced on an earnings call that they had overestimated gross margins, which is really important in a retail company, that they had overestimated gross margins by 1,000 basis points. And their gross margins weren't 48 points, but 38. And I think the stock went from 12 to 7 at the open of the market the next day. And right then I thought, okay, I don't know if it's this next annual board meeting, but I've won. I'm going to get back on the board and I'm going to sweep out these fucking sycophants. Anyways, and so I have direct experience with a management team. This was a typo. This was a clerical error that sent the stock on a temporary wild ride.